When the Eastern Church sent out missionaries like these, however, they were also ambassadors of the Byzantine state, and the pagan rulers they converted became political allies of the empire as well, or at least it was hoped they would so become. The best example of this religious diplomacy occurred in the 9th century when two missionaries, Cyril and Methodius, later canonized, produced a script and liturgy that would be adopted by the Bulgarians and by the Slavs of the Balkans. In the 10th century, the Slavs of Russia adopted them too, and that is why today the script of the Russians is Cyrillic, or, if you like, Cyrillic. The other side of the coin, however, was that religious dissent in the Byzantine Empire easily turned into political division and vice versa. The political stability of the empire, even its unity, were affected by theological disputes. One sometimes feels that theological disputation was the Byzantines' favorite sport, more so even than chariot racing. But some of these disputes were going to have dire long-term results. One of them was a long-standing difference between the Orthodox view that Christ had two natures, human and divine, and the rival belief which held that Christ had no humanity, only one nature which was totally divine. The people who believed in one nature were called monophysites, literally one-naturists. Monophysites were particularly numerous in Egypt and Syria, where their different vision of Christ came in very useful to affirm political differences against the central government in Constantinople. And so the dispute went on for a couple of centuries, and it became particularly bitter in the 7th century, just when unity was needed most, as a new and explosive force burst onto the world stage. In the Arabian Peninsula, a prophet had arisen. His name was Muhammad, and in just a few years, he united the fierce, warlike Arab tribes into a confederation dedicated to the spread of a new religious message, the message of Islam. Muhammad's revelation was that there was only one God, Allah, and Muhammad was his prophet. There had been other prophets, Moses, Jesus, but Muhammad said he was the last and the only one to reveal the whole truth of what God was about. The religion he preached was simple and accessible, a strict monotheism with none of the complications that Christians had developed, a straightforward ritual rather similar to that of the Jews and related to cleanliness and hygiene, the emphasis of basic virtues like courage, charity, hospitality, and the important promise that those who fell in battle for the faith went straight to a paradise which the holy book of Islam, the Quran, described in detail, and which sounds a lot more fun than the paradise of Christians or Jews. Combined with military force, the message of Islam proved very potent indeed. In the 10 years before his death in 632, Muhammad had united all the tribes and cities of Arabia. By 644, 12 years after his death, Egypt and Libya had fallen to Islam, as well as Syria, Iraq, and Persia. By the time the century ended, Arab armies had overthrown what was left of the Persian Empire. They had laid siege to Constantinople, and within another 15 years, they had spread from India to Spain. Part of the secret of their success was that they were not quite as barbaric as they seemed. Arabia had long been a crossroads for trade in spices and perfumes and slaves. And Muhammad himself was a merchant in Mecca, which was a great merchant town, and found his first support in Medina, another merchant town. Muhammad also knew a lot about Jewish and Christian beliefs. Here he is depicted riding next to Jesus, which shows that the Arabs were not so isolated as one might think. Another part of Arab success was that they were Semites, speaking a Semitic tongue close to the Aramaic spoken by common people from Iraq to Palestine. Perhaps the most crucial factor was their relative religious tolerance. This is a scene from a Passover service held in Spain under Muslim rule. Muslims did not try to exterminate those who believed in Judaism, Christianity, or anything else. They simply asserted a higher revelation which made Muslims the chosen people, entitled to special privileges on earth and exclusive access to heaven, and which left non-Muslims as second-class citizens, tolerated but a bit despised. Muslims didn't have to pay taxes, only non-Muslims paid taxes, and this was a strong argument for conversion, of course, and an equally strong argument for Muslims to tolerate the non-believers around them. And while non-Muslims had to shoulder the entire tax burden, they paid no more, often less, than they had done before being conquered. Moreover, if they were religious dissenters at loggerheads with Constantinople and with the Orthodox Church, they invariably felt freer to worship in their own way under Muslim rule than they did under Byzantine rule. This is the story of the Coptic Church in Egypt, Monophysites who preferred Muslim tolerance to Orthodox persecution.